If you ask me to pick one digital product that will still be selling 10 years from now, I'd put my money on educational resources. Kids don't stop learning, and teachers don't stop teaching. Today I'm showing you how to design these aesthetic educational printables in Canva so you can start selling them on Etsy. First, let's talk about what educational printables are. These are learning resources that teachers, homeschool parents, and tutors purchase to help children learn different concepts. These are usually printed out and displayed in classrooms, homeschool spaces, or children's bedrooms to make learning easier. One of the reasons I love this niche is because education is evergreen. There will always be children learning new concepts, which means there will always be teachers and parents looking for resources that help make learning more engaging. The great thing about educational printables is that you're not limited to one grade level or subject. For young learners, typically preschool to kindergarten, you can create products like alphabet charts, number posters, colors, shapes, and days of the week. For elementary school students, usually grades 1 through 6, you can create products like multiplication tables, grammar posters, writing resources, fractions, science concepts, and geography printables. And as students get older, you can create educational resources for middle school and high school, such as chemistry reference sheets, biology diagrams, essay writing guides, historical timelines, and many more. Once you understand how to create educational printables, you can build an entire Etsy shop around almost any school subject or age group. Now, if you're watching this video, chances are you're someone who's trying to make money online or looking for a side hustle. I completely get it because that's exactly where I was a few years ago. So if you're still exploring different ways to make money online, I think you'll really like HubSpot's free guide with over 120 ways to make money with AI to help you start earning today. One of the hardest parts of starting an online business is simply knowing where to begin. There are so many different paths you can take, and it can be overwhelming trying to figure out which one is actually worth your time. That's why I think this guide is so helpful. It helps you discover ideas that match your skills and interests so you can spend less time wondering what to do and more time actually getting started. Inside, you'll find over 120 AI-powered income ideas. It explains what each side hustle is, how to get started, the best AI tools to use, and even different ways you can monetize it. I really like that it's not just a list of ideas, it actually gives you a roadmap for exploring each one. Personally, my favorite section is the digital products category because, well, you guys know that's my thing. One idea that really stood out to me was online course creation. I think it's a fantastic business model, especially if you're interested in the educational niche. The guide is completely free, so if you'd like to check it out, I'll leave a link in the description below. And a big thank you to HubSpot for creating this free resource and for sponsoring today's video. Let's quickly talk about sizing and how these products are typically delivered to customers. Unlike Canva templates, educational printables are usually sold as ready-to-print files. That means your customer isn't opening a Canva template and customizing the design themselves. Instead, they're downloading a finished file that's already been exported and is ready to print. Because customers may want to print their posters in different sizes, most Etsy sellers include multiple size options with every purchase. I'll put some of the most common printable sizes on the screen here. Rather than designing every size from scratch, what I recommend is creating your design in one size first, then use Canva's resize feature to quickly generate the remaining sizes. This saves a huge amount of time. Once you've exported all of your files, you'll typically upload them to a Google Drive folder. This is because Etsy has file size limits and high-quality printable files can become quite large, especially when you're including multiple sizes. After uploading your files, simply copy the Google Drive folder link and include it in your PDF delivery file that customers receive after purchasing. Just make sure your folder permissions are set to anyone with the link so your customers can access and download the files without needing to request permission. For today's tutorial, we're going to be creating a collection of educational posters from different school subjects. We'll be creating a types of sentences poster, cups and arms checklists, a scientific method poster, and order of operations poster. Together, these cover subjects like math, language arts, and science, while also showing you how to design educational resources that are both visually appealing and easy for students to understand. So with that said, let's jump into Canva and start creating our first printable. Let's first put together our design elements. Since we're creating educational printables for mostly elementary school students, I want these to feel colorful, playful, and fun while still being easy to read. For the fonts, I'll be using Nectarine, Hobo, and TT4s. For the color palette, I'm sticking with bright, cheerful colors like pink, yellow, purple, blue, green, white, and a warm terracotta accent. Finally, for the decorative elements, I found all of these directly inside Canva. If you search for terms like hand-drawn flowers, unicorn stars, rainbows, and similar doodle-style graphics, you'll find plenty of options that work well for educational printables. Now, one thing that's a little different from my template tutorials is that in this case, I'll also be using Canva Pro elements. Normally, when I'm creating editable Canva templates, I recommend sticking to free elements so your customers won't need a subscription. But because these educational printables will be exported as finished PDF or PNG files rather than shared as editable Canva templates, you have much more flexibility to use Pro elements in your designs. Our first printable is a types of sentences poster. It helps students learn the 4 different types of sentences by breaking each one down with simple explanations and examples. We'll start with a white background. Then, using the Nectarine font we chose earlier, I'm going to type types of sentences. Now, this next step is a little tedious, but it's what creates the colorful text effect we're going for. Instead of keeping the entire title one color, I'm going to select each letter individually and alternate between pink, yellow, green, blue, and purple. It'll take a minute, but trust me, it makes a huge difference to the final look. Once that's done, click on the text, go to Effects, and add an outline using the warm terracotta color from our palette. I'm going to increase the thickness to around 71. Next, duplicate the text and change every letter to that same terracotta color. Then reduce the outline thickness to about 50 and send this copy behind the original. Finally, adjust it slightly down into the side to create a shadow effect. And that's it! This is the technique I use to create these fun, colorful titles. It does take a little extra time, but I think the finished result is well worth the effort. Next, let's create our first sentence type. I'll start by adding a rectangle shape and changing it to yellow. Then I'll add a border with a stroke weight of 2 and change that to our terracotta color. After that, I'll stretch it across the page to create a nice content box. Now I'll duplicate the title text and change it to declarative. One thing you'll notice is that I'm only using the colorful lettering for the main heading of the poster. For the rest of the design, I'm sticking to a single text color to keep everything clean and easy to read. But if you prefer a more colorful style, feel free to carry that throughout the entire design. Now I'll place this in the top left corner of the box, then add a small circle to represent the punctuation mark. In this case, a period. Using the Hobo font, I'll add a short explanation of what a declarative sentence is, followed by an example sentence underneath. If you're ever unsure how to explain a concept or need example sentences, ChatGPT is a great tool for generating those. And that's what our first sentence box looks like. From here, we'll repeat the same layout for the remaining sentence types. I've gone ahead and created the remaining sentence types as well. I have one for imperative, one for interrogative, and one for exclamatory. For each one, I simply changed the punctuation mark to match the sentence type. You can find these by searching punctuation marks in Canva's Elements tab. Now for the final touch, let's add some decorative elements. I'll start by adding this flower to the top corner. These Canva elements I chose let you change the color, so I simply adjusted them to match the color palette we're using throughout this design. Then I'll send it to the back so it sits nicely behind the text. Next, I'll add a small star beside it, followed by one of the rainbow elements we picked earlier. Again, I've recolored it to match our palette, and I'll send it behind the text as well. Don't be afraid to rotate, flip, or resize these elements to create different looks. Small adjustments like that can make each printable feel unique. To finish everything off, I'll add a couple of stars to the bottom left corner and this cute unicorn star to the bottom right. One thing I want you to notice is that I was very intentional with the elements I chose. Since our text uses a warm terracotta outline, I mostly chose elements that also have an outline so I could change it to that same terracotta color. You can see it in the rainbow, the unicorn star, the flowers, and even the smaller stars. Those little details help tie the entire design together and make the overall poster feel much more cohesive. And with that, our first educational printable is finished. Our next printable is a Cups and Arms poster. This is a popular editing and revising resource that helps students remember what to look for when proofreading their writing. We're creating it as a 2-page printable instead of a single poster. Let's start with the Cups page. I'm going to copy the header from our first poster and paste it onto the page. We're going to change that to Editing Checklist. Now here's a little trick. If you simply highlight the text and type a new title, Canva will change the entire heading to one color and you lose the colorful lettering we created earlier. Instead, highlight highlight each letter and replace it individually. Takes a little longer, but it preserves the color pattern so you don't have to recolor every single letter from scratch. Once that's done, don't forget to update the shadow text behind it as well. Since that version is all one color, you can simply replace the text with editing checklist and you're done. Now I'm just going to add a couple of decorative elements. I'll place this green flower and send it to the back, then add this unicorn star on the right side and position that behind the text as well. Now let's create the first item on our checklist. Search paper coffee cup in Canva and you'll find the paper coffee cup element I'm using here. I've already changed the colors to match our palette. Next, I'll add the letter C right in the middle of the cup. I'll change the text to white, keep the same terracotta outline. Then I'll select everything together and rotate it slightly to -6 degrees. Beside the cup, I'll add the text capitalization. Underneath that, I'll insert a rectangle, change it to white, and add a border. Then I'll increase the corner rounding to create this capsule shape and stretch it across the page, letting it slightly extend past the edge. Finally, inside the capsule, I'll add the checklist question. From here, we're simply going to repeat the same process for the remaining sections. We'll create one for understanding, one for punctuation, and one for spelling, following the exact same layout while changing the colors to keep everything visually interesting. To finish the design, I'm just going to add a few more decorative elements at the bottom, a rainbow and a couple of stars, and with that, our cups page is finished. Now for the arms page, we're actually going to use the cups page as our starting point. First, I'll remove the cups graphic since we won't need it anymore. Then I'll change the heading to revising checklist. Just like before, I'll replace each letter individually so I can preserve the colorful lettering. I'm also going to switch up the colors of some of the decorative elements. I'll change the flower to blue, the star to yellow, the smaller stars to green, and even adjust the colors of the rainbow. Next, I'll update each section to match the ARMS acronym: add, remove, move, and substitute. I'll also replace the checklist questions inside each box. Then I'm going to search human hand in Canva and use this hand graphic. I'll use the same white letter with a terracotta outline that we created earlier, place it in the center of the hand, and rotate it slightly. Then I'll repeat the process for the remaining letters. And with that, our ARMS page is complete. Our next printable is a scientific method poster. This is a classroom reference that helps students understand the steps of the scientific method. We'll start with a white background, then search retro groovy frame in Canva and choose the frame I'm using here. I'll enlarge it slightly and change the colors to pink and yellow so it matches the rest of our palette. Next, I'll add the word question inside the frame. Then at the top of the page, I'll add the title scientific method using the font Hobo along with 2 small stars beside it. Inside the frame, I'm also going to add a small purple circle. Then I'll place a question mark icon inside the circle to visually represent this first step, which is question. Finally, I'll add 2 short pieces of supporting text. And that completes the first page of our scientific method poster. Now, I'm not going to walk through the rest of the pages because I simply repurposed the first one we just created. Once you have the layout finished, it's really just a matter of duplicating the page and updating the content. This page is the research step. As you can see, I changed the colors, replaced the icon inside the circle to match the step, and updated the heading along with the supporting questions. I followed that same process for the remaining steps: hypothesize, experiment, analyze, and finally conclude. Together, these make up a complete scientific method poster set. Our final printable is a PEMDAS poster. PEMDAS stands for parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. It's a simple acronym that helps students remember the correct order of operations when solving math equations. Now, this one's a little different because we're starting with a landscape layout instead of the usual portrait orientation. I'll begin by adding the main title, which is order of operations. Next, I'll add a few decorative elements. I'll place this unicorn star on the left side, this flower on the right, and then sprinkle a few stars around the page to help fill the space. And that's our title page complete. To change things up a bit, I'm going to switch the background to pink instead of keeping it white. Then I'll add 1 large letter P on the left side of the page, followed by a flower as a decorative element. Next, I'll add a white rectangle on the right-hand side. This will hold the main content for the poster. At the top of the rectangle, I'll add the heading parentheses and grouping symbols, which is the first step in the order of operations. Right below that, I'll add a few grouping symbols as visual examples. These include parentheses, square brackets, and braces. If you're looking for these in Canva, those are the search terms I recommend using to find the symbols. Again, I'm not going to walk you through every remaining page because I simply used this page as my starting point and just updated the content for each step. For the next page, I changed the background to purple, replaced the letter P with the E, updated the decorative elements, and changed the content to exponents. After that comes multiplication and division. For this one, I changed the background to yellow, and since there are 2 operations, I used the letters M and D. I also added a couple of stars beside the letters and included this line in the middle. Then of course, I updated the content inside the box to explain multiplication and division. Finally, I created the addition and subtraction page. I changed the background to blue and updated the letters to A and S and replaced the content inside the box with an explanation of addition and subtraction. And that's it! Together, these pages make up a complete order of operations poster set. And those are all of the educational printables we created today. Once you get the hang of this process, you'll realize there are so many more educational posters you can create. Just to give you a few examples, I've also designed posters for divisibility rules, the writing process, hamburger paragraphs, invisible math, alphabet flashcards, multiplication charts, and even trigonometry posters. Now, I'll be honest, the trigonometry posters aren't the quickest products to create. It took me quite a bit of time to do this because a lot of the illustrations and diagrams had to be created manually because they weren't readily available in Canva. But that's also why I think they're worth the effort, since they're much more time-consuming to make. Fewer sellers are willing to create products like these, and that can mean less competition. Another tip is that once you've created a poster set, don't stop at just one design style. Take a look at these trigonometry posters. I actually created several different design variations for the exact same product. We've got this style, this style, this style, and this style. They all contain the exact same information and follow the same layout. The only things I changed were the colors, fonts, and a few decorative elements. By reusing the same content and simply giving it a different visual style, you can create multiple product variations without starting from scratch every time. Not only does this help you build your shop much faster, but it also gives your customers more options to choose from depending on the style they prefer. Now, if you'd rather not spend hours creating these from scratch, every educational printable I showed in today's video is actually included inside the Vault. The Vault is my library of over 1,000 resellable digital products spanning 13 different niches. So even if educational printables aren't the niche you want to pursue, there are 12 others to choose from. You can customize the products, rebrand them, and sell them in your own Etsy shop without having to design everything from the ground up. It also includes tutorials, Etsy shop starter kits, product listing photos, and other resources to help you get started. If you're interested, I'll leave a link to the Vault in the description below. And don't forget to grab HubSpot's free AI side hustle guide if you haven't already. Whether you're interested in digital products, freelancing, content creation, or another online business, it's packed with ideas that might inspire your next venture. You'll find the free download link in the description box below. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It really helps my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!